The hum of the ceiling fan swelled in Calvin's ears as he drifted into sleep, the mundane rhythm of his day fading into the silence of night. It was supposed to be just another ordinary night, another escape into his subconscious before facing the grind of reality again. But tonight, something was different. He opened his eyes and found himself walking down a sunlit street. Birds chirped overhead, children played on front lawns, and the smell of fresh bread wafted from a nearby bakery. Everything felt normal, too normal. Calvin stopped in his tracks, frowning. "When did I get here?" he muttered. The question haunted him. He didn't remember leaving his bed, but before he could dwell on it, a car honked, and someone shouted his name. "Calvin, you're gonna be late." Turning, he saw a woman waving from the front porch of a quaint house. Her smile was familiar, her voice warm, yet he didn't know her. She was holding a baby, and two children peeked out from behind her legs laughing. Calvin's heart raced. Who were these people? He stepped closer, his legs moving on their own, and before he knew it, he was kissing the woman on the cheek and ruffling the children's hair. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I'm fine," Calvin stammered, but he wasn't. Something gnawed at the edges of his mind, whispering that none of this was real. When Calvin woke up, he sat bolt upright in his bed, his chest heaving. His bedroom was exactly as he had left it. The peeling wallpaper, the hum of the fan, the faint glow of his alarm clock reading 6:12 a.m. "Just a dream," he mumbled, rubbing his face. But the dream lingered, vivid and sharp, like a memory replaying in his mind. The woman's laugh, the baby's cry, the warmth of the sunlight, none of it faded like most dreams. Shaking his head, Calvin pushed the thought aside and got ready for work. The day passed uneventfully, back to doing meetings, emails, the humdrum of office life. By the time he got home, he was too tired to think about the dream again. He fell into bed, ready for another night of forgettable rest. Except it wasn't forgettable. The moment Calvin closed his eyes, he was back. The same house, the same family, the same life. "Daddy, look what I drew," a little girl said, tugging on his sleeve and holding up a crayon drawing. Calvin stared at her. "This isn't real," he whispered. The girl tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "This is just a dream," he said, his voice trembling. His wife appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Calvin, are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," he shouted. "I'm dreaming. None of this is real." Her face twisted with confusion, then fear. "What are you talking about? You're scaring the kids." Calvin grabbed his head, the walls around him suddenly feeling too close. He needed to wake up. He needed to get out. "Wake up," he whispered to himself. "Wake up." And just like that, he was back in his bed, gasping for air. The clock read 6:12 a.m. again. The hum of the fan filled the silence. But Calvin wasn't relieved. He stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. Was that a dream? Or is this? He went through his day again, but something felt off. The colors seemed muted, the sounds distant. Everything around him felt like a copy of itself, like he was moving through a haze. By the time night came, he was almost afraid to sleep, but his exhaustion won out. Back in the dream, his family greeted him as if nothing had happened. "Long day at work?" his wife asked, handing him a cup of coffee. Calvin didn't answer. He just stared at her, his mind spinning. He started keeping track. Night after night, he returned to the same dream. Day after day, he woke up in his real life. But the line between the two blurred. The dream felt just as tangible as reality, sometimes more so. He began noticing inconsistencies in his waking world. A street sign spelled differently, a co-worker who seemed to change faces. "What's happening to me?" he whispered to himself one morning. His nights were consumed by his dream family, his days by the nagging question of what was real. At one point, he stopped calling it a dream. It wasn't just a dream, it was another life. One night, as he sat on the couch in his dream house, his wife leaned over and kissed his cheek. "What's wrong, love?" she asked. He looked at her, tears welling in his eyes. "I don't know what's real anymore." She smiled softly and cupped his face. "Does it matter?" Calvin froze. "You're here now," she continued. "Isn't that enough?" When Calvin woke up, her words echoed in his mind. He looked around his dim bedroom, his heart heavy. For the first time, waking up felt like leaving home. He went through his day in a daze, waiting for night to come so he could return to his dream family. But the thought haunted him. What if this wasn't real? What if he was nothing more than a mind floating between dreams? As the weeks passed, he began questioning everything. What if life itself was a dream, and the dream was life? What if he was trapped in an endless loop, destined to live both realities forever? One night, as he lay in bed, he whispered into the darkness, "Am I God experiencing myself?" The thought chilled him. If he was, then he was alone, trapped in an infinite web of his own creation. He closed his eyes, unsure if he wanted to wake up or keep dreaming. Either way, he knew one thing. The line between reality and illusion no longer existed, and maybe it never had.